Chapter 134. The Upheaval. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Zhang Shaxu continued, Yunwu Commandery itself is a mess right now. Queen and the minister suggest turning you into a Peace Square Commandery. But, the commanders and generals suggest fighting them to the death. Even the large-scale family and suzerain feel insecure now. They believe it is you who committed a fatal offense that brought a catastrophe to Yunwu Commandery. But, they have all been fooled. Square Commandery wanted to annex us ages ago. The death of Prince Huoxing was only an excuse. Oh, my ninth brother, the situation isn't favorable to you. You should stay on the western campus and never return. Zhang Yuochen smiled and said, No, that I cannot do. I'm going back. No, you can't, said Zhang Shaxu. You will become a target the moment you reach Yunwu City. Everyone will turn against you. They might even chop your head off and send it to Square Commandery, for appeasement. With a determined look, Zhang Yuochen stood up and said, I must go back. I can't imagine how much pressure my mother is suffering in the palace alone. Zhang Shaxu fell silent. Then, he clenched his fist, looking like he had just made a big decision. He said, My ninth brother, I will go back with you. If the war is inevitable, I shall fight with you. Very well. Let's go, said Zhang Yuochen. When they stepped out of the dormitory, they found that Blackie was already waiting outside. Sitting on the two-headed blood lion, Blackie glanced at Zhang Shaxu and asked, Will you come back, Fatty? Hearing an even fatter cat calling him Fatty, Zhang Shaxu was not happy at all. He tried his best to stare back at Blackie and said, Who's a fatty? You. So what? Blackie stood up and rubbed its paws, displaying a fierce look. My ninth brother, your cat does not have any manners. Not to be outdone, Zhang Shaxu also showed an aggressive look and took out his death scythe. It looked like the fight was unavoidable. Zhang Yuochen didn't want to waste any more time. He said, Come on, you two. We have to return to Yunwu City now. Blackie and Zhang Shaxu split up immediately. Instead, they fixed each other with a hostile glare. Zhang Yuochen got on the two-headed blood lion and said, It will take 2 days and 2 nights from the western campus to reach Yunwu City. I'll be practicing in the internal space of the time and space spinal during the time. Blackie, call me if anything happens. Zhang Shaxu was leading a second-level inferior savage beast out for riding. As he emerged from the savage beast palace, he accidentally heard Zhang Yuochen's words. He asked in surprise, What is a time and space spinal? Before the sound of his voice had died away, Zhang Yuochen suddenly vanished into thin air. There was only a spinal with a chain left on the two-headed blood lion's back. What was that? Zhang Shaxu was startled and cried out loud, Don't fuss. Blackie glared at Zhang Shaxu with contempt. Then it picked up the time and space spinal and hung it around its neck. Zhang Shaxu was still suffering from shock and he continued searching for Zhang Yuochen as he asked, Where is my brother? Blackie was impatient and piloted the two-headed blood lion, waveringly, towards the school's gate as it replied, Why do you bother so much? Just shut your mouth and follow me. Everything will be fine. Zhang Shaxu was half in doubt. But, he still got on his savage beast, a saber-toothed lightning tiger, and followed up. Zhang Yuochen raced against the clock to practice. He spent 6 days and refined 2 drops of the half-saint's essence, to improve his cultivation inside the internal space of time and space spinal. It wasn't easy to reach the final state of the Black Realm. Even if he refined all 27 drops of the half-saint's essence, he probably wouldn't break through to it. But, of course, if he refined all 27 drops, his physical quality would improve significantly, which would greatly help him reach the ultimate realm of the Black Realm. Bang, bang. Zhang Yuochen started to practice his palm technique. He practiced the dragon and elephant prajna palm again and again. Through the practices, he allowed the efficacy of the half-saint's essence to completely infuse his body. After practicing for a day and a night, Zhang Yuochen's body was covered in sweat. The efficacy of the half-saint's essence had been completely infused. We are going back to Yunwu City. Zhang Yuochen thought it had almost done, so he stopped practicing and walked out of the internal space of the time and space spinal. With a sharp whoosh and a blink of white light, Zhang Yuochen suddenly appeared on the two-headed blood lion. Zhang Shaxu was riding his saber-toothed lightning tiger alongside. when he suddenly saw Jiang Yuochen appear. He was so shocked that he almost fell off, and he asked with great surprise, "My ninth brother, where have you been these last 2 days?" Jiang Yuochen smiled and said, "I secluded myself for refining." Secluded? Where? Jiang Shaxu looked around, searching for the place, but he found nothing. Seeing that Jiang Shaxu didn't realize the secret of the time and space spinal, Jiang Yuochen decided not to tell him. It wasn't necessary for Jiang Shaxu to know too much. Jiang Yuochen pointed at the big belly of the two-headed blood lion, and replied vaguely with a smile, "I have been staying in there." "Of course, you can't see me." "Really?" A delighted expression was on Jiang Shaxu's round face. He said excitedly, "When I was a child, I heard that some prodigies were able to get into a savage beast's belly to practice. They would absorb the beast's blood for nutrition, and, in this way, their cultivations was improved profoundly." "Are you one of these prodigies, my ninth brother?" He actually believed it. Jiang Yuochen nodded and answered, "Yes. I accidentally found an ancient book in a cave, and I learned this from that book." "Can you teach me?" said Jiang Shaxu eagerly, staring at Jiang Yuochen with a look of expectation. Maybe later." Jiang Yuochen quickly dismissed the subject. He looked ahead and asked, "Where are we now? How far is it to Yanwu City?" Jiang Shaxu replied, "We are now at Mount Tanayu. We are 200 miles away from Yanwu City." After crossing the mountain, Jiang Yuochen had heard about Mount Tanayu before. It was an important defensive barrier to the west of Yanwu City. Mount Tanayu covered about 300 miles of the surrounding area, and its barren hills, turbulent rivers, savage beasts, and dangerous terrain made it easy to hold but hard to attack. 300 years ago, Yanwu Commandery had built a gate into Mount Tanyue. The Tanyue Gate. After 300 years of improvements, the walls of the Tanyue Gate were even stronger than the Yanwu cities. There were a large number of arrays and 120,000 soldiers on it. It could defend against the savage beasts and ensure the safety of Yanwu City, which had a very important strategic significance. Even though the road was dangerously steep, Jiang Yuochen and Jiang Shaxu were both riding second-level savage beasts. Therefore, they could still keep up the pace. Suddenly, Jiang Yuochen's ear moved slightly. He then looked to the bushes nearby and asked in a low voice, "Who's there?" Clash. Jiang Yuochen drew out his flash-shining sword and was posed for defense. A man covered in blood climbed out from the bushes. He staggered and fell in front of the two-headed blood lion. "Help! Help me!" the man implored. He fainted away right after saying these words. Jiang Shaxu was cautious about the man and he said, "My ninth brother, be careful. It could be a trap." Jiang Yuochen jumped off the two-headed blood lion and walked to the man covered in blood. He felt a little uncomfortable when he saw the man's wounds. There must have been over 30 cuts on him, and one of his arms had been chopped off. But, the most severe wound was on his head. His skull had been hacked, the crushed bones were protruding and could be seen clearly. His head itself had been almost cut in half. Fortunately, his strong cultivation and outstanding body of martial arts helped him to survive. Other warriors would have died from wounds so severe. Jiang Yuochen brushed the man's wild hair to the side and a familiar face appeared. Upon seeing this face, Jiang Yuochen's countenance fell and he cried, "How could it be?" Jiang Shaxu reached over and looked at the middle-aged man lying on the ground. He said, "I think he looks a little bit like Liu Chengfeng." "That's because he is Liu Chengfeng's father, Liu Quanshan, manager of the Martial Market Bank in Yanwu Commandery," said Jiang Yuochen seriously. "What?" Jiang Shaxu was so frightened that he even fell to the ground. He breathlessly said, "It is said that Liu Quanshan is a legend of the Heaven Realm. He is a real master with extraordinary strength. You can even say he is the top warrior in Yanwu Commandery. Who could hurt him this severely?" Jiang Yuochen also looked grave, knowing this was not a trivial matter. After carefully examining the wounds, he said, "If I've gotten it right, Liu Quanshan must have encountered a bunch of warriors in the Earth Realm. What's more, there must be another extremely strong warrior in the Heaven Realm, and this warrior must have chopped off his arm." Jiang Yuochen took out a bottle of recovery pills and immediately fed 10 pills to Liu Quanshan, but they didn't seem to have an effect. Jiang Yuochen's pills were all second class and they were very effective for warriors in the Black Realm. However, it might not be effective for a martial arts legend in the Heaven Realm. The physical quality of the warriors in the Heaven Realm was strong in mere blood, and genuine chi was enough to heal any common wounds. But, once they were badly wounded, common pills were not effective at all. Zhang Shaxu asked, who would dare to attack the manager of the Martial Market Bank? Are they not afraid of offending the Martial Market Bank? I'm afraid that there might be an upheaval in Yunwu City. Zhang Yuochen felt a gloomy foreboding. Boom! Just then, the loud and clear sound of iron heels came from the road ahead. An awful foreboding atmosphere could be felt, even from a distance. Whole flocks of birds flew away, disappearing into the clouds. Zhang Yuochen quickly sent Liu Quanshan into the internal space of the time and space spinal. Then, he jumped back onto the two-headed blood lion and gave a glance to Zhang Shaxu, telling him with his eyes to stay calm. Who are they? How dare they try to kill the manager of the Martial Market Bank?